Good afternoon. This is the time and place for a workshop before the Gaming Control Board to discuss and solicit comments regarding, without limitation, Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 5.200. Madam Secretary, has the workshop been posted in accordance with the open meeting law?
Yes, it has.
Okay, then, thank you. Madam Secretary, let's proceed with public comments that are unrelated to Regulation 5.200. And of course, please note that comments referring to Regulation 5.200 will shortly be heard later in the agenda.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so at this time. Comments by each person are limited to 3 minutes as a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. If board members ask questions of the speaker, the time needed to address those questions will not count against the speaker's 3-minute time period. If speakers have any handouts or written copies of verbal comments to provide for the record, please hand them to the enforcement agent in the room.
Okay, anyone wishing to make a public comment as to anything other than Regulation 5.200, please step forward to the podium in either Las Vegas or Carson City. Okay, seeing none, that will close our public comment section. Madam Secretary, have the regulation comments been posted?
We did not receive any regulation comments on this matter.
Very good, thank you. If you would then, excuse me, Madam Secretary, please read into the record our item for today.
Our item today is the discussion and possible recommendation to the Nevada Gaming Commission of amendments to Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 5 regarding, without limitation, the modification of financial criteria for gaming salons, regulation of public-private access to gaming salons, and regulation of reporting and supervision requirements.
Very good, thank you very much. And thank you to everybody attending this hearing. What I'd like to start with is Senior Deputy Attorney General Michaela. Are you on the line?
I am, and good afternoon, Chair Dreitzer, Member Assad, Member Sandal, Madam Secretary. For the record, I am John McKellar with the Attorney General's Office.
Thank you, John. What we're going to do for those in the audience is Senior Deputy Attorney General Michaela is going to review the draft in detail. At that point, I will have some comments, but potentially my fellow board members will as well. And then, of course, we will open up this discussion to the public. So with that, Mr. Michaela.
Before you today, for you to discuss and possibly recommend to the Nevada Gaming Commission are regulatory changes regarding gaming salons. These changes originated in a workshop held on December 12th, 2024. During that workshop, 4 main points were raised with regard to industry-desired changes to gaming salon regulation. 1. The financial criteria for admission into a gaming salon should be lowered, and guests should be allowed to be present in a gaming salon without the salon patron for a longer duration. 2. Poker should be specifically contemplated as a potential revenue generator in gaming salons. 3. Slot minimums in gaming salons should be at the discretion of the licensee. And 4, a licensee should be able to more easily temporarily convert a gaming salon into a public gaming space. The slot minimums at the time of that workshop were set by statute and could not be changed by regulation. Based on this, the industry worked with the legislature this past session to change this through the passage of SB 459. With the passage of SB 459, Chairs Dreitzer and Hendrick and the Enforcement, Audit, and Technology Divisions held discussions with the industry concerning salons. The draft before you today, dated August 7th, 2025, is based on these discussions. The proposed language in the draft does lower the financial criteria for admission into a gaming salon. Specifically, it lowers the financial criteria from $300,000 to $50,000. This change is found in subsection 2D1 of the draft. I note here that it is my understanding that the Nevada Resort Association has requested this be deleted and financial criteria for admission be left to the discretion of the licensees. The general rule in Nevada is that gaming must be open to the public. This is set out as a matter of policy in NRS 463.0129. When gaming salons were created as a statutory exception to the general policy that gaming must be open to the public, the focus was on high rollers who would otherwise not gamble in Nevada and thereby generate revenue for the state if they were not allowed to have private gaming. Gaming salons were authorized in 2001. The initial financial criteria for admission required $500,000 in available funds. This was lowered to $300,000 in 2008. The draft before you today proposes that this be lowered to $50,000. The $50,000 financial criteria would respect the initial intent of gaming salons as an exception to the general policy that gaming is open to the public while recognizing that times have changed. However, the board could validly determine a higher or lower amount would better respect the initial intent concerning gaming salons. Subsection 2D2 recognizes that private, high-stakes games of poker have the potential to generate significant revenue for Nevada if moved from private homes into gaming salons. The financial criteria for poker would require all participants to be salon patrons, but would only require poker salon patrons to buy into the game for $10,000 each rather than $50,000. The $50,000 threshold is maintained by requiring the minimum buy-in for a table to be $50,000. This would mean for a 5-player game, the buy-in would be $10,000 per player, while a 2-person game would have a buy-in of $25,000 each. Subsection 3A adds a few logging requirements concerning tracking who uses gaming salons, recording identity information, recording salon games, recording financial criteria verification, and other information as required by the chair. Subsection 3B matches the legislative update concerning games and gaming salons as set out in SB 459. Subsection 3E updates slot machine minimum wagers to mirror the language in SB 459, as the updated language in SB 459 requires the board to approve the minimum wagers. The regulation sets out an automatic approval for minimum slot wagers of at least $5. This complies with the statutory language requiring the board to approve that, while making approval of minimum slot wagers almost as easy as that for table games. Subsection 3F changes the gaming salon active supervision requirements from when the salon is officially open to when a salon patron or guest thereof is present in the gaming salon. Subsection 3I requires immediate reporting of certain conduct. The language here mirrors the language which is contained in Regulation 5.011, subsection 1K, which has been in place for at least 20 years. Subsection 4 changes the duration in which a guest of a salon patron may be present in a gaming salon without the salon patron being present from 6 hours to 24 hours. Subsection 6B creates an approval process for a licensee to temporarily convert a gaming salon into a public gaming space. A request for approval to open a gaming salon to the public must include comprehensive measures to ensure the public knows the gaming salon is open to the public and how to find the gaming salon. The chair may also require additional measures to ensure the gaming salon is truly open to the public and to ensure that gaming remains strictly regulated. These changes are before you for your discussion and consideration of recommending them for adoption to the Nevada Gaming Commission. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Michaela, thank you very much for that. So before we begin with comments from the public as to this matter, I thought it was important to make a preliminary set of remarks to help frame the discussion we're going to have here today and to make a proper record for what we intend to set out to do. As you know, in 2001, the state of Nevada passed legislation creating private gaming salons, excuse me, as a separate licensing category. At the time, the salon concept was predicated on providing a special amenity to very high-end gamblers who would thereafter be allowed to gamble in privacy under specific rules and conditions. The discussion at the time amongst lawmakers, gaming regulators, and industry participants was that this would create substantial additional revenues for Nevada and its casino licensees by offering something that was unique and desirable to the small number of patrons in that high-end category. This was thought to be particularly important in what was then a period of economic uncertainty right around 9/11 and thereafter. I think by and large, most would agree that this approach has been a success. In late 24, in the lead up to the 25 legislature, this discussion was renewed by stakeholders in an attempt to update the law in a way that would be more compatible and consistent with the current day environment. Now, what's interesting about this is that the goals actually remain the same: bringing more revenue to the state of Nevada in an economic uncertain time and allowing for a flexible and unique amenity that certain non-restricted licensees can offer their valued patrons. What has changed, though, are some fundamental dynamics that now require us to revisit this issue at the gaming regulatory level in light of the passage of SB 459. As has been said, SB 459 mandated flexibility and modernization for those licensees who choose to offer this amenity. As noted, the new bill gives the licensees much greater flexibility in the type of games to be offered, including poker, as well as the denominations in which slots are offered. So the task here before us is to adopt regulations, revised regulations, consistent with the statutory change, done in such a way that is reasonable and consistent with good regulatory oversight, while at the same time supporting Nevada's licensees in their desire to utilize this important economic tool to produce greater revenue, all in the face of ever-growing competition across the world and certainly across the US. I believe in the draft we created at the board level, we offer just that. Now, with that said, I believe there is one point that has arisen in this process that certainly deserves deeper discussion today, and that is the amount for minimum deposit or line of credit threshold required for salon patrons moving forward. Historically, when this law was created, it was $500,000, as you know, later lowered to $300,000. Today, GCB puts forth a substantially lower number of $50,000 as a starting point to begin this important discussion about flexibility and increased access to the salon amenity for casino licensees in today's challenging market. I fully understand that times have changed quite a bit in the last 25 years. So while we still seek revenue opportunities for Nevada in today's uncertain economy, things look very different in terms of how we've gotten here. For one, non-gaming revenue is certainly more prevalent than ever for casino licensees. This presents a wholly different strategy for licensees who may not rely on individuals to gamble as much as they have had in years past, but to also spend in other areas like retail or restaurants or in convention business. That said, the point is well taken by the chair and others that licensees may want to offer the salon amenity to lower dollar level players in view of their larger economic impact on the property overall. Additionally, with the rise of social media, players, and sometimes celebrity players for that matter, seek privacy in many areas where possible, where they can do it, including oftentimes gaming experiences such as in a salon. On this celebrity point, it's also completely understandable why licensees would want the buzz and marketing benefit from having celebrity patrons at their property. Putting these realities together leads me to the quick conclusion that a lowered deposit level is fully justified and substantiated. Doing so will give the type of players and guests described above another reason to choose Nevada casinos, particularly in light of the many other jurisdictions which now offer similar amenities. But as with all things, it's a balance. In this process, we certainly need to make sure that the limits set can be regulated effectively to the benefit of the entire industry in the state. Given the sheer volume of licensed locations, play, and gaming devices in Nevada, we must always think in different terms for Nevada. and figure out from an enforcement standpoint what level makes sense so that we can regulate it effectively and efficiently. And of course, this is always part of the discussion. It's important to note that in over 2 decades, Nevada licensees have acted with great professionalism and responsibility in this area, and I'm certain they will continue to rise to the occasion as we go through this process. With that, I look forward to a full day's discussion, both with members of the public as well as with input from our staff where appropriate. I am open-minded as we collectively pursue a responsible way forward. Thank you. And with that, I'll see if either of my colleagues have opening comments before we turn it over to public comments. Judge Assad.
Thank you, Chairman Dreitzer. I'll reserve my comments until I've heard from the participants.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Chairman. I don't have any opening comments. I'll wait as well.
Thank you. So with that table being set, we invite members of the public to step forward to make comments. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you and good afternoon, Chair Dreitzer, Member Sindal, Judge Assad, Madam Secretary. My name is Virginia Valentine and I am appearing on behalf of the Nevada Resort Association. We are very appreciative of the work that the Gaming Control Board and staff have invested in the proposed amendments to modernize gaming salons. I also want to recognize Chair Hendrick for starting the conversation by holding a workshop on salons last December of 2024. During that workshop, several changes were identified that would increase the value of gaming salons to patrons and operators. The most impactful change would be addressed in regulation was lowering the financial criteria for salon patrons below the current $300,000 front money requirement. 2 other requirements were identified, those being the amount of the minimum wager placed on slot machine and the requirement for having a table game present regardless of whether or not the patron wanted to play a table game. It was recognized at that time that the last 2, including the table gaming requirement and slot machine minimum wager, would require statutory changes in addition to amendments to gaming regulations. With the GCB expecting no concerns with these changes, the NRA was successful in advocating for passage of SB 459. SB 459 removed the $500 minimum wager for a slot machine and the requirement for a table in the salon. We believe these are common sense updates to state law that will allow licensees to provide guests with more customized experiences, while also helping attract valuable players who may be choosing to play in other states. We are incredibly happy to see that these changes will be effectuated in the proposed amendments to Regulation 5.200, and we thank you for incorporating these changes. In 2001, as been mentioned, the Nevada legislature passed SB 283, which required the Nevada Gaming Commission to adopt regulations for the licensing and operation of gaming salons for the first time. At the hearing, Attorney Bob Fest pointed out that NRS 463.408 already delegated to the GCB chair the authority to restrict access to any gaming on the floor or elsewhere, and could already make exceptions for special events. At the hearing, Fest articulated many reasons to support the creation of salon gaming, including the desire for privacy, personal security, and respect for varying cultural customs. He asserted that security and surveillance could be maintained while operating salons. In the 24 years since salon gaming came into existence in our statutes, a lot has changed. In 2001, less than half the states had any form of legal gaming. Now all states except Utah and Hawaii have some form of legal gaming. Tribal and commercial gaming have expanded dramatically, as has illegal gaming. Las Vegas has changed. With the introduction of professional sports and large-scale entertainment venues, resort casinos attract a diverse group of visitors in addition to international guests, including professional athletes, actors, entertainers, and other high-profile individuals. This evolution from the gaming capital of the world to the sports and entertainment capital of the world has changed the definition of high-value customers. Some of these guests are seeking exactly the same level of privacy and security as salon patrons envisioned in passing salon legislation in 2001. Much of the testimony in the 2001 hearing applies to the amendments under consideration today. Quoting Bob Fest, there are certain premium international casino patrons, and I will note that international, I believe, was removed at a later date, whose fortunes and interest in gaming result in the wagers of tens of thousands of dollars per hand. Those patrons are accustomed to the highest standards of hospitality, which include security and privacy during their gaming activities. SB 283 requires the Nevada Gaming Commission to adopt regulations for the licensing and operations of gaming salons, which will allow, or did allow for the first time, Nevada casinos to operate on an equal playing field in attracting those customers to Nevada, a business we do not now have. The policy statement that controls here is in NRS 463.0129 to ensure that gaming is conducted honestly, competitively, free of criminal and corrupt elements. All gaming establishments in the state must remain open to the general public, and the access of the general public to gaming activities must not be restricted in any manner except as provided by the legislature. The arguments Mr. Fest made for legalizing salon gaming then apply now in advocating for the elimination of front money requirements. In 2005, high-value guests who do not meet the current financial criteria are also accustomed to high standards of hospitality. They prize their security and privacy during their gaming activities. They have the capability to generate significant gaming revenue for the state, as well as tax revenues on food and beverage, lodging, retail, and entertainment offerings. Free advertising, sometimes known as earned media, also benefits the states, the licensees, and the destination. By lowering the minimum front money requirements and offering privacy, security, and elevated gaming experience, we believe we will attract casino patrons who are not playing here now. To the best of our knowledge, no other state or tribal entity regulates the minimum front money requirements. It may be that salons are self-regulating the requirements. Opening a salon is a business decision made by the operator, who must consider the return they will make on equipping the salon, their surveillance and security costs, staffing the salon, the refreshments in the salon, and other associated expenses. The value may not be the gaming revenue alone, but might also include the immediate attention, the spend on lodging, entertainment, fine dining, retail, and other resort amenities, and ensuring that the guest returns by creating an exceptional, curated experience. The operator should be tasked with establishing a minimum deposit or financial criteria that makes sense for their business model. We seek to better understand the need for a minimum front money credit requirement. We recognize that you are partners in monitoring the gaming salon regulations. If there are concerns about the proliferation of salons, control over the number of salons is already addressed in regulation and in statute, since any new salons or modifications must be approved by the chair as stipulated in 5.200 Section 6. If there are concerns about knowing who is in the salon, the log and new regulation requirements can be audited and will provide that information. Licensees remain responsible for the operations of salons in a suitable, compliant manner. With respect to the proliferation of salons, we would note that there are several requirements already in place in Reg 5.200, which give the chair, the control board, and the commission control over the number of salons. These are 5.2001A. Salons are only permitted at resort hotels, and resort hotels is defined in the statutes. 5.002, operators must apply for salon license. NRS 463.4071, operators must pay a licensing fee of $5,000. 5.2003, they must comply with restrictions and requirements set forth in the statutes or by the commission, so they can be conditioned. 5.2005, after the initial opening, any additional salons may only be opened with the administrative approval of the chair, who may refer that request to the commission. And lastly, NRS 463.01292 states that no applicant has a right to a gaming license. It's a privileged license, is not an entitlement. Minimum front money credit requirements place Nevada salon operators at a competitive disadvantage. Nevada is the regulatory gold standard. We would also like to be the gold standard for gaming experiences. We ask that you consider allowing salon operators to establish the minimum front money credit requirements for opening salons. I also want to talk about poker. We are very excited about the addition of poker to salon gaming. It is anticipated that the addition of poker will bring in customers who are currently playing in other venues. In reading the proposed amendment in Section 2D1, it appears that the front money deposit of $50,000 is required for salon patron for games other than poker. In 2D2, the language requires that the game of poker shall include a buy-in of at least $10,000 for each salon patron. Like table games, we ask that the operator be tasked with establishing the minimum buy-in that makes sense for the business model rather than a required minimum. And if there is to be a minimum for poker, we would ask that the salon patron definition regulation permit at a minimum total buy-in be provided by one player. That would allow a poker player as the salon patron to bribe the front money, invite his or her guest to play in the salon. There are several other amendments included in the proposed regulations that we believe will enhance the operations of gaming salons to the benefit of patrons, the state, and the licensees. We anticipate that broadening the type of games allowed in a salon will attract customers who are not currently casino patrons. Requiring staffings only when patrons are present will reduce the cost of operating a salon. Section 4 will permit the salon patron's guest to continue to play after the patron has left. It's particularly important with poker. In conclusion, we believe that the proposed amendments will increase gaming revenue, attract new customers who are seeking elevated privacy and security, contribute directly and indirectly to non-gaming revenue from retail, entertainment, dining, and lodging, and make Nevada salons competitive with salons in other states. And it will enhance the gaming experience. We ask for consideration of two things. One, allow the licensee to establish the front money credit line minimum, whether for table games or poker. And two, if a minimum buy-in is still required for poker, allow for one salon patron to provide the total required minimum buy-in, and clarification that the poker players are not each salon patron subject to the front money requirement, which, as we noted, we hope is changed to allow the licensees to establish the amount. It is worth noting that NRS 463.4046 on admission of patrons to gaming salons, the admission of a patron to a gaming salon, A, may be restricted on the basis of financial criteria as established by the licensee and the board. There's no statutory requirement for you to set minimum. Let's let the licensees make a business decision. Joining me today are many of the salon operators and representatives of their companies. Unless you have questions for me, I would like for you to hear from them about the importance of the proposed regulations.
Thank you, Ms. Valentine. I actually had just one question. Can you give us some insight as to your membership, what the discussion was about what the minimum would be? I mean, I would assume you may say zero, but I'm sure you had a discussion about it. Was there any consensus reached about how a minimum makes sense? And if so, what's that number?
Well, I think, I don't know that I can represent them all, and I think some will represent themselves, but I think the feeling was they would like to see the minimum be zero. Some of them may set that higher. They're making an investment when they make that decision to open a gaming salon, and that's going to be different for them depending on the business model. But in general, I would say the consensus of the group is that they need the flexibility and ability to make these decisions to optimize their resources. I hope that helps. Some of them may use it, some may not. Like I said, I think they're going to make a business decision, and that might be a different number for each of the operators. But in general, I don't think they're going to willy-nilly open salons. It's just too expensive for them to do that.
What's your sense of how many more licensees are out there that would potentially be interested in opening a salon as a result of these changes?
I have not heard that any are. I won't say they aren't, but then again, to do that, as I attempted to explain, I think you have the control over that. If you feel that a licensee is not suitable to operate a salon, you certainly have several controls at your disposal to deny a request for an additional salon. Again, even additional salon for an existing licensee has to go through a process of an application and be approved by you. And if you don't approve them, I guess they have the administrative appeal to go to the whole commission on that.
That's all understood. I was just wanting to get a sense of demand based upon our activities here, increased demand such as it is.
Yeah, and I do think they are looking for that that circumstance now. I think a lot of what you've done it's terrific. People are very pleased with the progress that we're making, but I think we didn't fully solve that issue of what do you do with a celebrity who's there seeking they may have their own security detail, they want their privacy, they don't want to be tracked through the hotel and the casino with a gaggle of media covering them. So that we're kind of trying to address that group of people that they don't really fit what people thought a salon patron would be in 2001. I hope that helps. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I got
Actually,
questions. Hold on. Thank you, Chairman Director. So I can't imagine a casino manager or a CEO calling down and saying, we want a zero minimum requirement. Right? I mean, is that, you're saying you want to be able to control the minimum amount, but I mean, it would never be zero, would it?
I think we are saying that it should be zero.
Well, then
now,
how do
this-
you, you're gonna get riffraffed. You're gonna get Tom, Dick and
Well,
Harry
I-
in there.
I-
They're
so
gonna split a pair of tents. They're gonna not double down on an 11. And some other whale is playing big money and he's gonna say, what the hell is this guy doing over here? Get him out of here. So you gotta have a minimum amount to keep out the riffraff, don't you?
Virginia Valentine, for the record, I don't think a casino manager would call down and ask to open a salon for riffraff. As I said,
No, you're missing my point. You got the salon, it's open, right? So you got a high roller coming in there, but you've already set a limit, zero requirement for the credit or the front money, right?
I think that would depend on the patron.
So also to clarify, I believe when we talk about salons, they would be different salons. So you would be able to choose who would go in your salon. And then in a separate salon, that would be a separate group of people. So correct me if I'm wrong, you could do it, but you'd never have an occasion where you'd have people who were two separate parties in one salon, would you?
Virginia Valentine, Chair, I believe you're correct. They have control over who is going to, when they're going to open them, who they're going to open them for, and what the limit is going to be.
So you're gonna have more than one player in a salon, right?
Yes,
Okay. So that's my point. Let's say you have a zero credit line requirement and a zero front money requirement. So you open up the salon and you get some high rollers coming in there and they want to play blackjack or craps, doesn't matter, whatever table game you have in there. You're gonna have table games in there probably, right?
that depends on what the patron wants. Again, the requirement for a table has been removed so that if you're not interested in having a table game, then there's not much point in paying someone to stand there and.
Right. I
operate
mean,
the
what are they
table
gonna
game.
do? Yeah,
I think fundamentally, I want to make sure that we understand here that when we talk about a salon, that's a group, right? You have a patron
a
comes
group.
in, and the operators would be able to manage the other individuals that come into the salon. So it's not like you'd have two stranger parties in the same salon.
No, these would be guests of a salon patron, which you all have defined in the
Right.
regulation. And that salon patron is the one who would be, we'd be providing the information on and setting the limit for
So-
that salon patron.
And you wouldn't have a circumstance, Judge, where, as I understand it, and as we went through this, where, you'd have party A come in and engage in gaming, and then another party B would come in. That wouldn't be the case, correct?
Virginia Valentine, Chair, I think it is time for you to hear from some operators who can do a lot better job of answering the judge's questions than I can do.
Very good.
Yeah, let's clear that up. I'm confused. I mean, you open up a salon, right? And you're gonna have more than one whale in there, maybe, no?
I believe so. My name, good afternoon.
If you could hit the button there till it's green.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Please state your name for the record.
My name's Charlie Stone. I'm the Executive Vice President of Casino Operations and Marketing at Wynn Las Vegas. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I just thought I could answer some of the questions regarding salon usage. Specifically, these salons, regardless of the threshold, ideally would be at the operator's discretion. So we wouldn't, if it was zero, we would still approve of who plays in the salon at what times and still fill out the proper paperwork and track the play accordingly. So the idea would be for all of the points that were mentioned that whether
So-
it's because of non-gaming spend or because they were celebrity or whatnot, that maybe they're not a big gambler, but there's other opportunities to drive revenue and increase visitation. And those are the players that would enter a salon. So potentially if they only had a few $1,000s as an example, that salon would go into a private gaming and be for that specific person.
So you open up a salon. It was public, now you want to make it private, let's say, right?
I would say the salon was closed. And
Okay,
there's no gaming activity, and we
Right.
would open it up
Yeah.
to be private for the patron that we decided should be in there.
or more than one patron,
If
could
that
be
specific patron had
3 or 4
friends,
whales. Not just as guests, but I'm sorry, 3 different individual whales come in from all over the world.
they would each be assigned a different salon. There are exceptions where if we think that the players would be comfortable and there's multiple tables in one salon where you could have more than one big player playing in that salon, but that's very infrequent.
So it's basically one whale per salon
Plus their guests,
plus their guests.
correct?
So you'd never have a situation where you're gonna have a zero requirement. What way, I mean, if you got a whale, what's the point, you know?
For a lot of the reasons that were mentioned, I think a zero requirement actually makes sense because there's a lot, for one, privacy. A lot of celebrities, athletes, other people who might value privacy and have business relationships with us. It's a nice way to accommodate them in a private setting where in the age of cell phones, everybody has a camera in their pocket and could take pictures. And it's a great way to provide a better level of service and security where I believe we could attract new customers and also, again, drive frequency of visit.
So you're saying a Michael Jordan comes in, wants to play, he's not gonna wanna put up $50,000?
He might, but there could be a trip where a person like that visits, and while they are a whale or a very big player, maybe the specific trip they came for a different reason, but they still want to have the same gaming experience that they're accustomed to. And so even though they only have a couple $1,000s to play with and they're going to just kill some time and have some fun, we'd still like to be able to offer them that private gaming experience that they're used to.
Okay.
I would also want to point out, and I know this might be a simple point, but for your consideration, in gaming salons, these are the same games that are offered in the high limit room as well as the casino floor with the same rules and the same payouts that anybody can play out on the main casino floor. We have better surveillance coverage in these salons, a higher standard and longer retention of these tapes. And there's also a higher ratio of casino employees per guest in these gaming salons, allowing for more supervision. So regardless of the threshold, even if it was lowered to zero, as I recommend, the level of integrity is extremely high. I would argue the highest as anywhere on the casino floor. All of our same practices and ratings and tracking of customers and following of KYC, AML, Title 31 practices are maintained. Everybody who plays in a gaming salon is rated and tracked. And again, ultimately, I think it will allow us to drive more business.
What do you pay on a blackjack, 6 to 5 or 3 to 2?
We pay both. We pay both, but generally it's 3 to 2.
When do you pay it? When
In the
you pay,
salons, it's all 3 to 2.
it's all 3 to 2 in
As
the
well as
salon?
in our high limit room and as well
Okay.
as many games on the main casino.
So there's not gonna be any differentiation
No, sir.
on a salon
All of the
versus-
games and payoffs that we deal in salons are available to anybody to play in the high limit room and on the main floor of the casino.
And how about craps, 3, 4, 5?
Correct.
And that would be the same in a salon?
Correct.
What if a whale comes in and says, I want 10 times odds on craps?
We deal 3, 4, 5, but that's an option available to the operator. I would
So the
evaluate it
salon
based-
would get 10 times odds, but the regular customer out on the floor would be 3, 4, 5?
No, that wouldn't happen, and it hasn't happened, and we've had many craps players playing gaming salons, and we deal 3, 4, 5.
And what about baccarat? A whale says, I don't want to pay the commission.
Everybody pays commission would be my response.
So essentially the same rules for everybody.
That's correct.
Okay. What was the other thing that Ms. Valentine was making a point about? What did she want to change? Oh, the poker.
Yes.
So you want to have it where one player can put up the $50,000 requirement?
If there's going to be a minimum, Virginia Valentine again, Judge, thank you for the question. If there's going to be a limit or a minimum on poker, we would ask that one player be able to put up the minimum. We'd still like for the licensee to be able to establish the minimum front money or line of credit. But then if somebody comes in and says, I want to put up that amount and I want 5 of my buddies to come in here and play with me, you would be able to do that without having each of them have to put up the same amount of money.
Yeah, my understanding, and John, this would be a question for you. Poker player can come into the salon and play with just $10,000 front money or credit money, right? He doesn't need to
The
meet
way
that
this-
$50,000 requirement, does he?
The way this is currently written, it would be a $10,000 buy-in per player with a table
Aggregate
minimum of
$50,000.
$50,000.
Yeah, aggregate.
So Right. So if there were two players, it'd be 25,000 per player. If there were five players, it'd be 10,000 per player.
And that poker play does not have to meet the $50,000 requirement for the salon portion of the regulation.
No, the way it's drafted, it's separate. So it'd be other games have one set of financial criteria, and the game of poker would have separate financial criteria.
So I think that answers your question, right? No, he just said no.
Not from necessarily from one individual, but in aggregate and
Well, that's to get the game going,
PAG,
it's to make it viable. Thanks.
So I
So
think
you're
if I
saying you
might
want to
add
get rid of
some-
the $50,000 aggregate amount?
well, we would prefer that there not be a requirement, but if there is a requirement, we're saying, why couldn't one individual put up that requirement?
I think he can, right, John?
Right now, it would be a 10,000 minimum per player. And I suppose the rest of the buy-in could be satisfied by one other additional player, but you would still have the 10,000 requirement per player.
And the reason for that would be what? What's the rationale for that?
The rationale was to set up some sort of minimum criteria, and keep it in line with other games. So other games require one salon patron to meet a $50,000 criteria, whereas the game of poker would lower that financial criteria per player, but still keep the $50,000 table minimum.
And that would be what, to separate it from what's going on the main casino floor poker area? Because they have
I
totally
think-
different limits on the floor. You have a $5 buy-in, you have a $20 buy-in, you have a $100 buy-in. So
So
is this to differentiate it from what's going on the floor poker area?
I think more to ensure that it's a high stakes poker game, as was requested to be private in these salons.
Mhm. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Can you
address-
speak a little more into the mic?
If I may address Judge Assad's question, we are aware that there are card games going on in other states and possibly even here, and those card games are happening out of sight, if you will. We are asking to kind of level the playing field, because that's what we're competing with, that we be able to have poker in the salons and that there not be a minimum buy-in. And if you're going to establish one, then one player be allowed to provide that minimum and then invite their guest to play with them. I'm trying to boil this down to the ask. That's the ask. It's no minimum. If you have one, then let one player put it up and invite his guest so that we compete with these card rooms that are happening in other states. They're happening.
California?
They're happening privately. So we can't offer that experience right now. That's what we're seeking to do, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Milton Friedman guy, the theory of economics and fair play and and less regulation. I don't have a problem with that. I think the casino operators are smart enough in the salons, the ones that are going to be overlooking minimums on poker and so forth, to decide what's best for the casino at that particular time. So I'm okay with that request.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I may add one comment about poker, I think it's really about the guest experience and creating great experience for these guests, similar to the points that were made about private gaming salons for table games. In poker, which is experiencing increased popularity right now, a lot of these guests want to play in a private gaming salon. They might be playing small, and that they still might be very good casino customers or other high value to the property type of customers. And these experiences in a salon could include a food and beverage component and general privacy that makes it a much better experience for them.
And Mr. Stone, my only concern also would be that you really know who your player is, KYC. You've got to know who these players are coming into these salons. You've got to know the source of funds. I mean, if it's a celebrity, that's different, Bruno Mars wants to play or somebody like that, that's fine. But I'm talking about people who aren't well-known celebrities. You know, there's a tremendous avenue here for possible money laundering. You're dealing with high limits, high stakes, so forth and so on. So you've still got to emphasize source of funds, source of revenue, enhanced due diligence, and customer due diligence, testing, so forth and so on, you know, making sure, assessing, doing a really high degree of assessment. And then, of course, KYC, you've got to know that Mr. Smith is in fact Mr. Smith, and he's not somebody else coming in as a mule for another patron from China, and he's playing on Mr. X's money and at his direction just to launder some money. So as long as you have an enhanced degree of anti-money laundering protections in there, then I'm okay.
Yes, sir, understood.
Thank you, Judge Assad. Member Sendell, do you have questions for Ms. Valentine or Mr. Stone?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the discussion. And I guess for my, in your discussion about this on the financial criteria, I understand you don't want to burden perhaps a client or patron that's in on the front money aspect, but it says it can be front money or a line of credit issued by the casino. How long, what is your typical process to run, you know, a credit line? If this customer, this patron is worth a lot of money to you, I would assume you've already, kind of to the judge's point, done some due diligence, know who this person is. You're willing to put up a room, you know they're going to spend a bunch of money perhaps on food and beverage or entertainment at your property. It was unclear to me in reading this. It's not just front money that you need, you know, direct funds from the patron. It says you can just issue a line of credit. And I don't know if I'm missing something there or just not understanding what that means, but is it really that big of a deal to be like, okay, it's Michael Jordan, we're going to extend you a $50,000 line of credit so you can go get a gaming salon? I'm just not understanding that. If you could clarify that for me.
Yes, happy to. I think in the big picture, speaking for myself at least, the level of player that plays in private gaming salons would not be changing much. But there are fringe cases and examples that happen with some frequency that of people that we would like to put in a gaming salon that may not want to play at a very high level. So they may not want credit or to make a big front money deposit. It could be a big player who's coming in to see a concert or a sports game, and they want to have a very light casual gaming experience, and we still want to provide that level of hospitality for them. It could also be somebody who is driving significant revenue to the property in a way other than gaming, and we still want to be able to provide them this higher level of service and experience.
So you think extending them a credit, a line of credit or in credit extended to the salon patron, that they would somehow be offended by that? I guess that's the point I'm still not
No, I
getting.
don't think they would be
don't.
offended. They simply may not, they might have cash that they want to play with at a very small level, and it's a very recreational type of play in that moment. I don't think it's a question of credit worthiness. It would always be somebody that we know and that we're tracking and following all of our regular procedures with, simply trying to provide a level of service that they might be accustomed to already, or driving new business and showing them our best possible place to play.
So for example, if I come in and you know, I don't want to put up $50,000. You really want me to come play in your salon and spend a bunch of money. Maybe I'm doing a show there or something because I'm a pop star. And you extend me a line of credit and I just use maybe $5,000, $10,000 cash I have. I play in the salon. I never use the line of credit. You extend me a line of credit and I say, just close it when I leave, you know, at the end of the weekend. I mean, wouldn't that meet the requirement of extending $50,000 in credit extended to the salon patron?
It would meet the requirement as long as they were agreeable and the credit was able to be verified and applied in a quick manner. But I think the maybe the more realistic example would be that pop star walking in to the high limit room and saying, in the moment, without any
Right
notice,
now.
I want to play. Where can I play that's private? And I would like to be able to say, right this way, here's a nice gaming salon that you can play with, and most likely there will be no pictures and
Because if
social
you
media
had to
posted.
extend credit, I'd have to sign something and wait somewhere for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Is that the concern?
That's about right, yes.
Okay, That's what I just wanted to clarify, that the hiccup on doing that and what the concern was.
Yes.
That was my only question for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any further points, Ms. Valentine or Mr. Stone?
Virginia Valentine, I just would like to add one example that came up while we were having this conversation was someone who maybe is associated with the trade show or convention and is bringing a couple thousand room nights to your property,
Right.
who may not be able to get a line of credit for $50,000, but would like to play at a lower label. And if that's someone who's doing great business for us, we'd like to create something special for them. We'd have the ability to do it. I do think these cases will probably be rare, but I try to give you a good example of when you might not necessarily want to extend $50,000 line of credit. So
That's understood. Thank you.
And I would just like to follow up on the credit piece that you asked about. There's many individuals and celebrities that simply don't want their credit ran for a variety of reasons. It's just something that people don't want credit to be run. But we still know who they are and would track them perfectly and have identification and ratings created for them.
So, I mean, I would assume even, you have like a pop star or something coming, you've done some sort of due diligence to, before you spend all this money in investment and having them come play at your property, let's say. Wouldn't that suffice for the credit, 50,000 credit extension that, that you've done your due diligence? You don't necessarily have to officially run a credit check, or do you always have to run a credit check?
No,
You always have to run a credit check is what I'm hearing.
yes, we always run a credit check.
Okay,
But
thank you.
it could also be, in your example, a pop star that might be performing at Allegiant Stadium or the Sphere or somewhere else, and they come onto our property, which is very exciting, and we want to put our best foot forward and make it a seamless experience for them.
I appreciate the explanation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. I want to turn the attention of this discussion in another direction for a moment. As indicated earlier, wherever we end up is a balance, right? And when this discussion is over, there's going to be a significant number of board agents who are going to be involved, of course, in the regulation of whatever it is that we decide. So towards that end, I think it's important for Chief Torgerson to give us her point of view, if she would, about the minimum and also the logistics here, with the full understanding that the past 20+ years have been very good. And now the question is, if we really open it up to this level, what impact will that have on staff?
Chair, thank you for that. After extensive discussions with Enforcement Division staff, I highly recommend a financial threshold of at least 10,000. This is coming from a place, with staff over years of experience. As you said, the salons have, done very well. I think the licensees have done an amazing job in supervising them, but we also recognize maybe some pitfalls or things coming at us if we move too fast. So with that being said, Nevada is unique in the fact that we require open gaming pursuant to NRS 463-0129, but additionally, the size of our industry, the volume of private gaming, and limited enforcement resources suggest to us that we should have some sort of level of financial threshold. A financial proposal of 10,000 supports the supervision of private gaming play at an appropriate level, and it continues to promote Nevada's gaming salon experience. We view the 10,000 minimum as a significant reduction in industry accommodation, as 10,000 is only 2% of the original 500,000 financial requirement. We believe this threshold will facilitate increased accessibility to salon play while retaining the exclusivity and value of Nevada's gaming venues. In summary, I feel a proposal of 10,000 demonstrates the board's responsiveness to industry needs while preserving an appropriate level of regulatory oversight.
If the number goes to zero, say, can you give the board and the attendees a practical sense of what types of concerns that would lead to for you from an enforcement standpoint?
Yeah, I think, operationally, we're going to be pretty much flooded if this really takes effect statewide. I encourage growth always. I'm in support of our industry. I encourage new experiences so we can actually attract new customers to Nevada. I do think that, from a staffing perspective, we have some great concerns. I don't have one person dedicated to salon oversight for the whole state of Nevada. And so as we open this up, not only will we have to do maybe some training up north in that jurisdiction, because there aren't any salons currently in the north, we're happy to do that. But I think we would have to reallocate significant resources at the staff level to accommodate this type of change. And we're used to doing less, I guess more with less, but with that being said, it may prove challenging.
Thank you for that perspective. Do we have any other people who wish to speak on this matter? Please. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair Dreitzer, Member Sendall, Judge Assad, Madam Secretary. My name is Chandler Pohl, last name P-O-H-L. I'm Vice President, Legal Counsel for MGM Resorts International. I am joined in the audience by London Swinney, Vice President of Casino Operations at Bellagio, which is one of Nevada's casinos that has gaming salons. For my presentation, I'll cover three main topics in this order: social privacy, security, and we'll conclude with hospitality and amenities. So social privacy. Decreasing the gaming salon minimum threshold allows licensees the ability to offer salons to those individuals who are concerned about their social privacy, but may not gamble at a high dollar amount. Restaurants, hotel accommodations, entertainment and recreation venues, and elsewhere inside our resorts, we can accommodate a person's social privacy concerns without restrictions, because none of those areas has a minimum threshold or minimum spend requirement that serves as a social privacy accommodation prerequisite. The choice to accommodate in all those locations is up to the business. Reducing the minimum threshold to an operator's discretion for entrance to a gaming salon allows operators the expanded ability to address a customer's social privacy concerns in a substantially similar manner as the operator addresses those same social privacy concerns in all other parts of the operator's resort. Security. Decreasing the minimum threshold allows licensees the ability to better address the security of the casino, the staff, and all guests, not just those of high net worth or those with social privacy concerns. Large or sudden gatherings on a casino floor can be a concern. One thing that prompts such gatherings is human nature. Humans are drawn to events that commingle anticipation with uncertainty. That is true in sports, storytelling, and gambling. People's attention is drawn to these types of spectacles, and people will wait to witness the outcomes. As the stakes grow, attraction grows. Championship games attract more views than preseason games. Large jackpots attract more attention than small payouts. Likewise, well-known patrons who may have social privacy concerns attract more attention, just like high dollar wagers do. The more attention, the larger the crowd. Gaming salons were created in part to give operators the flexibility to respond to these kinds of concerns by allowing, when the circumstances merit, the ability to open a gaming salon. By decreasing the minimum thresholds, a licensee can now expand its salon offerings to address a particular patron's concerns, a licensee's own concerns, the casino staff's concerns, and concerns that the licensee believes other guests in the establishment may have. Some people want to be part of the action, others don't. Reducing the minimum threshold allows a licensee to accommodate all kinds of interests. Finally, hospitality and amenities. Nevada is a unique destination. Gaming salons are a unique amenity and a unique privilege for the licensee. The decision to make the salon available remains the licensee's decision. It is not a decision made by the patron or any other external party. When deciding to offer a salon, no doubt one of the primary factors will be the licensee's own financial analysis. By lowering the threshold amount, a licensee will still make that analysis. It merely expands what data can be considered in making that analysis. Lowering the threshold amount merely expands the ability of the licensee to offer the amenity to more guests. It does not mandate the licensee offer the amenity. That concludes my presentation. Thank you to the members of this board, the members of the previous board, GCB staff for considering this matter and holding these two public workshops.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. I have a question for you. Would you agree that the discretion requested is something that's earned by way of experience? That is to say, if we're looking at day one, once the reg is passed, right, you have decades of experience doing this, and let's say another casino's never done it. Do you understand or agree that maybe there's a concern about discretion giving it to you versus someone who's not been doing this the last 20 years?
I can't understand that perspective, and I can also understand that there are conditions that can be placed on any of those approvals. And I guess it's not my decision as an
No.
industry person to say who and who should not have a salon, right?
It's not that.
Yeah.
That wasn't my question. Just the point being that moving forward from this, we'll have, as always, individuals with different backgrounds and different levels of experience.
Yeah, and I would assume as a licensee, that would be something that the licensee would have to show in its application to make the board comfortable with granting the licensee to have the ability to offer salons.
Right. So to that point, then I'll turn to Mr. Michaela for a moment. If we wanted to address this in a way that's certainly left within the discretion of the board, the opportunity to put conditions on the licensee, depending upon their level of experience, depending upon their level of capability of addressing these issues, could we revise this to keep it at 50,000, but also just offer it with an exception where the chair or the board can have the option of allowing lower amounts at the chair's discretion? Is that something that we could do, or would we have to be more detailed about that?
Yes, it could be drafted that way, where you have an amount in there that could be lowered at the discretion of the chair to not lower than a different amount based on certain factors. And I could throw out some language if you'd like, or at a later point if you'd like to, if that's the way the discussion is turning.
Okay. Yeah, because as always, I understand that there's various safety guards, so to speak, along the way in terms of the application, the ability to condition, all of that. But to have a number there, and I know that I take what the input from Chief Torgerson very seriously, to have a number there at a minimum. Just trying to figure out ways to balance this out based upon all the considerations. So with that, Member Sendal, do you have any questions for Mr. Pohl?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate your affirmative presentation and raising some of those points regarding social privacy is a newer thing with social media, I would say, and kind of how maybe the industries change in the entertainment kind of world. And I think we need to respond to it to be effective and, ensure that we're supporting the industry to do what, you need to do so you can be successful in addressing that, right? Times change, right? It's a different gambler now. It's a different whale, if you will, or the money's kind of shifted into a different place and what the industry's earning. On that point, as the chairman was speaking, I was thinking to what Chief Torgerson was talking about, concerns with lowering the amount of increased work. And my thought kind of went to, from a financial perspective, is what can we do if there are increased costs associated with overseeing this, is just providing funding to ensure effective enforcement resources are able to be put out there to ensure training and oversight that needs to be done should this dollar amount be lowered or discretionally be placed to the operators. And this concern that there's going to be, perhaps an enhanced amount of workload that we just don't have the funding for, right? We can only do what we can with the resources we have. So that was my thought, and I'd be interested what your thoughts are on that. If, this proposal to lower it should perhaps come then with this idea that we need to help fund the regulation of perhaps what this will bring in. Should it hopefully open new opportunities to the industry to bring in more poker playing players or social, media stars or, celebrity players, and you hopefully have more business. And if the concern is oversight and regulation of that, could we rely on the industry to step up and help fund that and ensure we can regulate that?
Chandler Pohl for the record. So I'm probably not the right person to speak to about for the whole industry, maybe the Nevada Resort Association with some workshops.
Or just what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I could point out that there is an application fee.
Yes, and I see that NRS 463-4071 sub 2 says a non-refundable application fee in the amount of 5,000 must accompany the application for a license to operate a gaming salon. And then subsection 3 says an applicant must pay the costs incurred by the board for investigation of an application. So I would assume that having the separate subsection 3 almost in a way recognizes that $5,000, right, doesn't really cut an investigation that would be required for the board, to actually investigate the application for a new gaming salon. I guess I would have to look over to Chief Torgerson for that. I don't even know what the average cost would be or what the thoughts were on this and what perhaps the resources would have to be allocated to this, but that's something I think that seriously needs to be considered because that's what we're saying the issue is, right, to lowering it. If you wouldn't mind commenting.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the fees in place and the structure in place is to cover the investigative costs to assess someone's application and get it approved. So what I would be dealing with would be the regulation or the oversight after the fact, right, to regulate the industry. So I think those costs are already being utilized in billable hours as part of this application process.
So then to clarify, then if moving forward, then are you saying that that $5,000 is sufficient then? Should this dollar amount get lowered to, let's say, discretionary amount for the industry for each licensee to determine that, or what are your thoughts on what that would look like?
As far as whether those costs are appropriate for the investigations division to actually assess and process the application, I'd have to defer,
To the investigative division. But you're essentially saying this cost in the statute has nothing to do with the cost that your team, the
Exactly.
enforcement division incurs.
Exactly. Yeah, we
Oh, so-
don't access those funds, and this was set in consideration of that process to get people approved. So as far as the after fact and the regulatory, oversight day to day, that money doesn't come to us and we don't have that type of funding.
Okay, so none of that money comes to you, and it looks like looking at the statute was last amended in 2003. It was first created in 2001, as Ms. Valentine mentioned, backed by Bob Vess, and that $5,000 amount is still back from like over 20 years ago. It's probably low as well for investigation fees, just presumably assuming that that's probably too low.
Probably. And even if funding could be provided through some mechanism, we of course have legislative approvals on the number of bodies that we have, within our division. And so there would be a delay in possibly having to get those approved through the legislative session as well. So funding is great, but if I don't have bodies to do that job and an ability to pay them through the legislature, it's kind of an obstacle for me as well.
That's the only question I have for Mr. Pohl. I guess if later, maybe if someone else from Ms. Valentine or somebody else wants to address the financial question I raised with paying for that, I'd be appreciative.
So let's do this then, Judge Assad. Any questions for Mr. Pohl?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Hendricks. So the issue is the proposed regulation requires a $50,000 front money or credit. You, the WIN, Ms. Valentine, on behalf of the NRA, are asking for no limit, correct?
We phrase it as, Chandler Poll for the record, we phrase it as at the operator's discretion.
Operator's discretion, which is whatever you want, no limit. You could set it at 100,000, whatever you want to do, right?
Correct.
Okay, and your examples are kind of spot on with me. I can remember anecdotally, I'm dealing craps at the dunes. We've got Adnan Khashoggi in. We had to set up a rope around the table so he could have so-called a private game. But even then, people were just flocking in from all over the place. They wanted to see the largest arms dealer in the world playing craps when there was a federal indictment hanging over his head, by the way. And he would come into the dunes. Mr. Shanker would let him play. He gave him crazy odds, crazy limits. He got in, he got out. But the point is, when you have like Gene Kilroy, for example, brought in Muhammad Ali to the dunes. He brought in Karl Malone, the basketball player from the Utah Jazz one time. These guys walk through the casino. People want to flock to them. They want to shake their hand. They want a picture. They want an autograph. And maybe they want to play a little bit in the private salon. So to me, to say, no, you have to have a $10,000 front line, Mr. Malone or Mr. Muhammad Ali, It doesn't make sense. And what's the difference? If it's 50,000, it was 500,000, then went down to 50,000, and now we're talking about 10,000. It doesn't make any sense to me. Let you guys do what you need to do. You know how to make money. You know how to run your properties. We need to get the heck out of the way and stop micromanaging you, because I haven't heard one reason yet that says we should have any limit on what we require for a private salon to have. It doesn't make sense. So whether it's $10 or $10,000, it doesn't make sense. Run your game, do what you want to do, as long as you emphasize, know your customer, verify source of funds. God bless you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Pohl, anything further?
No, thank you.
Okay, and we'll have a discussion about this at the end. But in the meantime, are there any other individuals wishing to come forward to speak on this matter? Sir, please make your appearance.
Chair Dreitzer, board members, I'm Joe Lupo. I'm president of Hard Rock Las Vegas, the old Mirage. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for taking the time, most importantly today. So I agree wholeheartedly with Ms. Valentine. I think Mr. Stone was very articulate, as was Mr. Pohl, and we are in the same agreement as everyone else that it should be the operator's discretion. We're not asking for any change in any regulatory oversight. There's a lot of oversight with labor and surveillance in these private rooms. We're not asking anything to be taken away. And right now we can have somebody with a $500,000 credit line betting $25,000 a hand wagering there in that salon. We're asking for the person to bet $25 to wager in that salon with the same amount of oversight, with the same amount of surveillance, with the same amount of labor and supervision. We're trying to provide an amenity and a service to customers. And there's obviously, and you said it yourself, Chairman and Ms. Valentine, a lot of great examples. The properties that we have here have a large amount of convention space. We have the CEOs of conventions that are bringing in thousands of room nights. They're not gamblers, but they make a lot of money and they might want to bet $1,000 or $50 and they come in with their friends. And that does happen frequently. So to be able to provide that opportunity to celebrities and athletes, like we said, but also those people that are bringing in tens of millions of dollars to this community in conventions, in restaurants, in nightclubs. It's tough for me to sit here and rationalize why I can't let somebody bet $100 versus $10,000. I would say, over the last 20 years, things have changed in this country. Online gaming and online wagering has taken money out of the pockets of some of the consumers that are coming here to Las Vegas. So we need to be more progressive and look forward. We need to be able to provide those services to the customers that we think are willing from a non-gaming perspective, has been said already as well. We're in complete agreement. And, I guess I would lastly say, while it's been said that the salons are successful, I'd tell you to walk through a lot of the casinos tonight and you'll see empty salon after empty salon after empty salon. I don't think they're successful. I think they'll be more successful so we can utilize them and say this group of people with $1,000 in their pocket who represent this company or represent 10 million viewers online that are playing at this casino would be much more valuable for us to accommodate them than not.
Thank you, Mr. Lupo. I think in hearing your testimony and that of others today, I look at it this way. If you look at sort of the world of regulatory risk on this topic of 5.200, there's two camps, if you will. The first camp is everybody sitting in this audience who have the experience, the know-how, and the capability to run their business and run their salons accordingly, such that it would provide minimal to no concern for the enforcement division. I don't want to put words in Chief Torgerson's mouth. It's through discussions I've had with her and what she said today, that's true. But then there's the other camp of, the unknown and who will this open to. And so that's the concern. And so and I think I have a way to potentially address both of those camps, but we're talking to the very people we have very little concern about. But you have to understand at the same time, there's others who may come in who don't have the experience and wherewithal that would have to, we would have to engage a fair amount of enforcement resources, which for us are very limited. And so we need to make sure we're balancing both of those. And I may have an idea, but go ahead.
Tonight, in Mr. Stone's casino, 1,000 decisions will be made, whether a table should be open, a table should be $100, a table should be $1,000. There's probably a table right now that's a $200 minimum, that'll go to a $500 minimum. In the high limit room, there's a $500 table that'll go to $1,000. There'll be decisions about whether to give somebody $50,000 worth of credit or 100,000, whether they go through that, whether a TTO should be giving, whether they should split aces 2 times or 3 times. There's so many decisions that the casino staff will make tonight. The only ask here really is to let this group play in that table. This is just another table with walls around it, actually with more supervision and more surveillance. But if this group of 4 people that we want to accommodate to plays in this salon goes outside to the high limit table, there's no extra cost on the gaming control board. There's no extra, or there's no change in what happens. What really the only changes are going to be, yeah, that table can play $25 minimum versus 500. So that group is accommodated. But I have seen in the past, I've sat with the biggest of celebrities in the entire world, from people who have been chased around the casino, from somebody yelling at an athlete where they took the high road and stepped away. But to be able to provide these amenities where these empty salons are sitting today, and be able to fill those with people who are literally would just be at another table outside in the regular casino. Again, I don't see the extra cost, and I see it as a service where Las Vegas, and having worked in 2 other jurisdictions, nobody provides better service in Las Vegas, especially with the growing changes in Las Vegas with the Sphere and the Raiders and the A's and the train and everything that the city has has going for it, and especially looking at the future. Any questions?
1 second, please. That makes sense, but again, we have to address the regulation for the entire industry,
I
right?
understand.
And so one of the things that I'm thinking about would be, again, your ability to manage your salons, I think is unquestioned. And everybody in this room, their ability to manage their salon is unquestioned. There's history there, there's expertise, there's know-how, there's capital to support that. The concern is circumstances where we have salons that may open up and, you know, they wouldn't have that sort of control, and it could lead to all sorts of issues potentially. Now, there are ways to condition that, certainly. So one of the things that I'm thinking about potentially is we could keep the $50,000, but allow for the board to offer an exception on a case-by-case basis, because I think it's clear that every case is different. And if there's a statement by each of the licensees requesting an exception to that, then we could grant that. I'm thinking along those lines. And that also creates a barrier to entry, frankly, related to individuals who think they can run a salon, but ultimately can't, or may have trouble because they don't have the years or decades of experience. So we're trying to find an approach that addresses those 2 sets. And I will always be very deferential to our staff to make sure that, you know, they're comfortable, because when these bright lights shut, the licensees and the enforcement division are the ones who are, so to speak, left with what we decide here. So we want to make sure that we're being fair and balanced around those, what I view as two sets of individuals. The sophisticated ones that are here today, which we appreciate, and frankly, have very little concern about what a go forward would look like with a much, much lower amount. And then other potential salons with licensees who might not have that amount of experience. So that's what I'm thinking, if we could just maybe structure it that way. That's just the thought. Remember, Sendai, you had a question for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate, you know, you mentioned you're making hundreds of decisions every night, right? Business decisions, what you want to do for your patrons. And you mentioned someone sitting out at a table and they want to move inside. And I just would think with today's day and age and the player tracking cards, you mentioned someone's already playing there, the ability to just run and extend credit. You mentioned increasing credit line from 50,000 to 100,000, making that decision. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing here by getting them into a financial criteria to be met to get into a gaming salon. That's the part that I just am a little bit struggling with. If that's just too high, I know we talked about lowering this down to 10,000. That's the part that I don't quite, I want to make sure we address a very important point that the judge brought up, which is this anti-money laundering issue and having some sort of check, some sort of, due diligence done on these individuals that are getting these private areas essentially. And kind of, I think the value that that brings, that there is still either a front money or at least some sort of credit extension line to enter into these salon areas.
Members, before you answer, please, Member Sandal, I think it's important to get this on the record. Mr. Michaela, could you refresh the folks here what exactly the checks are that are required for individuals who, regardless of the financial amount, are going to come into the salon? There are a fair amount of checks that are in the regulation. Could you speak to that?
So you would of course have the BSA requirements for knowing your customer. That would be a federal rule. As to the actual regulation, as drafted, the licensee would have to know the name of each salon patron in the gaming salon and guests. They would have to record government issued identification for each patron and wagering guest and keep a file of that in the licensee's records. The licensee would have to record financial criteria verification and results therefrom. And then they would also have to log other information that you may require. There is surveillance that has to be maintained in accordance with Surveillance Standard 10. There are additional supervision requirements when salon patrons or guests are present. They have to retain documentation for 5 years regarding individuals who meet the approved financial criteria. Under the draft, immediate reporting would be required of any conduct not in accordance with, basically, which might harm the repute of the state of Nevada. And then, as stated earlier, this is initially a license granted by the commission and administratively approved for subsequent gaming salons that is discretionary. It does not have to be granted. I think this touches on what you would like, Chair, and I believe Chief Torgerson may be able to supplement that as well.
The mic.
There it goes. Senior Dag McKellar, can you just clarify what it is you're wanting me to clarify, please? I'm sorry.
To the chair's question, the safeguards regarding people who are admitted to gaming salons and how you keep tabs on them, the requirements.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, we don't have dedicated staff that goes out to review salon play. Our resources are pretty thin, but we do have a lot of things in place, as has been mentioned by the industry representatives today with, surveillance. We no longer pipe that to the board offices. That was a really complicated and expensive endeavor that we had in place, and the infrastructure wouldn't uphold that anymore. So now we physically have to go out to actually review surveillance or review salon operations, which is our normal practice for field operations, of course. But I think that, when it really comes down to it, we're not worried about how salon operations have been going today. We do spot check. We do, come out to the licensees. We have great relationships. We have confidence and trust, but it's about opening the door and knowing what types of individuals are going to be allowed across the state into these private rooms and how new licensees are going to respond to supervising them properly. Because when we go way back in time at the very beginning, when we think about when salons were new, we had bumps along the road, but that's because people learn and it takes time to understand the regulatory controls and to allocate resources of licensees to make sure that the supervision is appropriate. And we're partners in that. I think we all have the same goal. We don't want to bring, ill repute to the state of Nevada. We don't want to have any problems here. And we definitely don't want to have, big fines and big cases because people aren't doing what they were supposed to do. So I think that's the unknown of where we go with these changes today.
Thank you. Mr. Lupo, further comments?
I would just say, to answer your question, I don't think anyone who's here said that we don't want to decrease any oversight whatsoever. So the oversight to understand who's in the rooms for surveillance and supervision would go unchanged, even for somebody who probably could be out on a $25 minimum table. So there'll actually be more oversight for these individuals. But from the credit standpoint question, either I'm confused, but I don't think anyone, at least from my standpoint, I'll talk for myself, we're not suggesting that you have to have line of credit to play in these rooms. If you have $1,000 in your pocket and you want to come play, then we'll put a minimum on the table and you play with $1,000. There shouldn't, that same person, again, can play at any other table. So having them play at this dedicated table where there's a dedicated a blackjack dealer, a dedicated supervisor, we're just suggesting that they have a private experience where we can service them better. But credit shouldn't necessarily be one of them, although there are probably 10 times the amount of $1,000 credit lines as there are $100,000 credit lines. So if that's necessary to give the CEO of the convention when he comes in $1,000 credit line, that can be done. That can be done the week before he comes in, actually. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I guess and just for the record, I think Senior Dag McKellar is reading correct from 5.20 subsection number 3, is it? Number 3A, establish a log that contains, and it has a whole list of things, right? The name of each salon patron and their guest times each salon patron enters and leaves the gaming salon. Is that what you were referring to, Senior Dag McKellar?
Yes, that's the bulk of it. I got it from there and then just skimmed through the rest and provided that as I saw. And
so from what we're kind of leaning towards here, potentially then under that sub 5.200 sub 3A5, as proposed in the red line versions, is the financial, that one thing that this log will contain is financial criteria verification and results therefrom performed for each salon patron. So if we leave it to the operator's discretion to determine whether there is a financial criteria, then there would be no, and let's say perhaps they decide it's 0, then there would be no results of due diligence from that financial criteria verification. But perhaps if that is, an option to amend, that you provide that after the fact or shortly thereafter in this log, that there be some sort of documented due diligence on these salon patrons to essentially record to what you're saying. You already know they're good, essentially, and putting that documentation in writing under this requirement that, the financial criteria verification and or just that there is some sort of due diligence verification if there is a $0 amount, let's say, that you decide that you're going to require for this certain patron to be able to play in your gaming salon.
Sure, we would record the patron, we would track the play, we would record the cash if that's the case, and obviously have all of the other regulatory oversight that we would follow.
That's just want to kind of put that commentary on the record that I think, if that is such a hindrance, perhaps there is a way to still ensure for, again, getting back to the anti-money laundering, ensuring that we have due diligence on these individuals. And to Chief Torgerson's point is anytime you have a closed door, right, no access to general public, the concern is, I don't know, you've all seen the movie Casino or whatever, there's skimming or whatever, that there's not, proper, play that's being fair and just, right? That you want to ensure the game is equitable and fair. So I think that's kind of one of the public policy goals here we want to try to strive for, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be something where we need to document that if it's not done to me, doing the credit line check beforehand is what that's trying to get at, is that you've done some due diligence of this person. But if you're saying you're still going to document and ensure that there's some recorded due diligence of these individuals that are going behind closed doors, that we can still do some verification on, that would provide me some, relief or reprieve or whatnot. Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Judge Assad might have a question for you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Dreitzer. Actually, John, Michaela, a question for you. So before this amount being lowered, it was 300,000, right? Was the criteria for credit or front money?
The current requirement is $300,000, yes.
Yeah, and way back when, before that, what was it, like 500,000 or something?
Yes, it started at $500,000.
Yeah, and they had some crazy requirement that if a guy went in there, a pretty decent player to the salon, his wife wanted to come in there with him. She had to bet, what was it, 25,000 on a slot machine or something?
The current slot minimum is $500.
No, way back in the day, way back when, wasn't there a dollar amount, a large dollar amount that was it 500? Maybe it was 500.
I'm not aware of the slot minimum wager being anything other than $500.
500, yeah, that's
That
my
being
point.
said, it could have been the case.
Yeah, and that's an example to me of regulators way back when who were politically appointed, who never pushed the card across the table, who never pushed a pair of dice down the crap table, who never spun a ball on a roulette wheel, who knew nothing about the way casinos operate. They never spent any time probably on the other side of the table gambling. The operators of these casinos, they know exactly what they're doing. They know who the customer is. They can verify the ID. They can verify source of funds. They can verify KYC requirements, all complied with Title 31 and BSA. All of our regulations are in compliance with. So we've gone from 500,000 to 300,000. Now we're down to 50. And the operators want to go operator's discretion, which I think is a fabulous idea. It unleashes the casino to make so much more money without oversight and micromanaging by this board or the commission. So I don't understand. I haven't heard one good reason why we have a $10,000 minimum requirement. There's no reason for it. They have spectacular surveillance. In fact, in the private salon, they're going to have more eyes in the sky. They're going to have better surveillance. They're going to have more floormen and more supervisors watching the games because it's a high limit game rather than in the regular casino floor. So all the issues that I've heard, the concerns about, we don't have security, we don't have this, we have to send enforcement agents out. You don't have to do anything. You've got it all on video, more video than you have on a normal casino floor. You have so much more surveillance, it's not even funny. So my question to you is, do you think you could effectually perform all the functions and duties and responsibilities of Title 31, BSA, our regulations, all the enforcement concerns that I've heard here today, if the operator's discretion were implemented?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else willing or interested in speaking before we have discussion? Okay, hearing none, I guess I'll start and we can go from there. First of all, I appreciate everybody's participation. I think a lot of the points made were very strong, and I can't help but think that the individuals attending this hearing, as I alluded to earlier, the ones that none of us are concerned about at all. You know how to run your business, and you should be given fewer constraints in this regard because you have proven over time that you can run salons, run them effectively, and candidly, I think regardless of what the amount is, you can do it. But having said that, I also, and I respectfully have a different opinion than the judge, I must defer in part in this discussion to enforcement and the fact that enforcement has limited resources. And again, even Chief Torgerson will say she's not concerned about the folks in this room in the NRA, the ones that already have salons. The concern is a bit of the unknown, new licensees who have less experience, potentially less resources, less know-how to be able to get a salon up and running and make sure that there are no issues. So from my perspective, it's balancing these two. And I'm not prepared, in view of all of the licensees who have salons, but more importantly, all of the additional licensees who have no experience who may want them, which I think is great. We want them to have it, but we need to take a little bit of a check here before we just say, do what you want to do. Obviously, it's subject to approval, but towards that end, what I would suggest is this. And the other thing too is this is something that we can easily adjust the current reg to be able to move forward here today on a vote if my colleagues agree. Lower the minimum to $20,000. And within the chair's discretion, Chairman of the Gaming Control Board has the discretion going forward to consider and approve lower amounts. Because I do think in some respects, this is not a one size fits all thing. It's more of each individual operator has a fingerprint here that's different. So it's $20,000. So it's generally understood that that's the number. And the casino licensees that have been in the salon business for a while, that we know operate well, they can apply for an exception to go lower. And that individual casino can have the discussion with the board, and we can confirm that. Because I do think that there's an element of experience that we want to give deference to, certainly, and we want to give you the opportunity to run your business in the best way you can and remove as many regulations as possible. But I think 20,000 is the right number in view of the discussion today, with the ability of each licensee to come in and ask for an exception to go lower based upon earned discretion, which you all deserve based upon your years of successfully running gaming salons. So to put it out there, again, I would consider a $20,000 number. And by the way, that speaks to the poker piece as well. So we can get it all done in one fell swoop. That is to say $20,000 for one poker game, so to speak, 10,000 per, but that too will be subject to revision based upon discretion on some sort of waiver or reduction sought. So those are my thoughts. I guess we'll start with Member Sendall.
Thank you, Chairman. And I appreciate the commentary and the answers and feedback. I was an internal auditor for Caesars many years ago, and the mix on reviewing gaming salons, they were never open, right? I never got to go audit one. So I get it. You need more play. You want to make them more relevant. I'm supportive of the lower proposed amount and providing the chair discretion to go below that as well at this point. I do want to support the industry, and perhaps this will provide this lower amount, kind of, as you're saying, kind of a trial to see how this goes. And perhaps in the future, this will need to be adjusted further, depending on how it goes. So those are my thoughts.
I appreciate that. Before we go to Judge Assad, one thing we can do is we can potentially go with this 20,000 number with the chair's ability to reduce that case by case. And then I am amenable to having another workshop a year from now, because we're in uncharted territory in a way, because we've gone from what was 500 to 300, and now in some cases potentially could be virtually nothing. So let's see how this goes over the course of the next year. And again, my core hesitation is not your capability as licensees. My core hesitation is respecting the limited resources that we have to properly enforce this, and most notably not with you, but with what could potentially happen with additional salons. And we don't want enforcement to be overrun, so I have to give deference and respect to that concept with full desire and interest and understanding that the industry deserves discretion to run their business. So again, it's my view, and I appreciate that point, Member Sendall, that this approach will balance that out. So you can submit an application that says, we've been running salons for a long period of time. We have the expertise in all of that, and make the case that you should go below the 20,000. As opposed to a new salon with another licensee who's never been in the salon business, for them to then say, well, we want to go below the 20,000, then we'd be, from my perspective, less likely to give that individual licensee in that scenario a reduction from the 20. So I think this balances it out well. And I think it respects the need from our enforcement staff to, manage this in an appropriate way. And I'm prepared to suggest to the industry that we could have another discussion workshop a year hence and see how this goes. But this gives the industry and the members of the industry who are experienced with this, gives you effectively what you seek, while at the same time balancing out the needs of our staff and taking into account, frankly, somewhat of an unknown. You must respect the fact that there's a bit of an unknown here if we go down. And I understand we have checks along the way, but you know how that goes. There's always sort of a push towards the lowest number at every level. So we just want to do this carefully. We've come a long way down, so that's what I would support. Judge Assad.
Thank you, Chairman Dreitzer. John, Michaela, question for you. So the 20,000, let's say, number that the chairman's going with, that only applies to the main patron in the salon, not to any of his guests, right?
That would be correct. So the only delineation I would have there is for poker. You would still have the $10,000 minimum per person, with 20,000 for the table instead of 50,000. And then it would be the chair's discretion to allow financial criteria to be proposed at lower than those amounts.
So if Beyonce does a concert and she wants to go into a salon and play, and the casino says, great, it's an excellent marketing tool, 100 people flock around her, and she wants to go bet a couple thousand in cash, she couldn't do it unless she passed a credit check and came up with 20,000 front money or credit, right?
So barring the chair approving a
Well,
lower
it's
amount.
2 o'clock in the morning. They're not going to wake him up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, let's be
Well,
realistic.
May I? Let's be clear on this. It's not a question of, each individual instance, right? The condition could be lowered based upon, a period of time, correct, Mr. Michaela? That is to say that if we were approached by our licensee and we decided to go lower, we could do so for a year or 2 years or whatever made sense. It's not that they're going to call the Gaming Control Board at 2 o'clock in the morning every time they want to lower the minimum amount.
Right. It would be a global thing for the salons operated by the licensee as approved by the commission and the chair. So it would effectively be a new subsection in the reg.
So the Mirage or Hard Rock now, or the Wynn or the Venetian or the Fountain Blue, see Stacy Michaels there. Hi, Stacy. They could call next week and say, Chairman, we'd like to have it operator's discretion. And that would be on the books. That would be what would happen until further notice from the chair. Is that correct?
As I understand it, I think the licensee could propose a $0 financial criteria, which would be effectively licensee discretion.
Right.
And then if the chair approved that,
Right.
then, Beyonce or whoever could go into the salon under that criteria.
So it's not going to be like a week to week or month to month. It's going to be, once the chair says you have it, you got it, you can use a $0 amount, which is operator's discretion. It's there until further notice. Is that what you're proposing?
That's what I would envision, which again, gives the operators who have that experience the flexibility to do so and utilize it. And I'm sure that the enforcement, not to put words again in Chief Torgerson's mouth, but the enforcement division, I believe, would have comfort in that, given the long history of those particular licensees' capability in that particular area, while at the same time keeping a number in there so that if there are licensees who seek to take advantage of the salon licensing provision, that there is an opportunity to move slowly. And I know that we would have the checks to do it, but from my perspective, putting the $20,000 number in there is regulation in the light of day, right? That a new salon entrant will know that 20,000 is where they have to be. And then to everybody's point here, they would have the opportunity to earn that discretion. And so I think that candidly balances out everybody's concerns. And again, I will always err on the side of, on one hand, of course, the licensees and giving you the licensees the ability to run your business, balanced out against staff and capabilities with staff. So my proposal is yes, certain individuals sitting in this room, they make application for a reduced amount under the 20,000. We certainly see that they have capability and longstanding history of responsible and admirable salon management. The waiver or the reduction is granted. They get what they need tools-wise to manage their business, while at the same time, we have a light of day regulation of 20,000. If we went the other way and said, well, we have the discretion, so we'll just make it nothing, and then, you know, we'll just have this sort of one by case about what the lowest amount should be for other individuals. I think it's better to have a light of day number at 20 with the understanding that as licensees earn through experience or in past experience have already earned the ability to have discretion in this, then they can apply to the control board and the chair can grant that relief for a year, 2 years, whatever makes sense.
And I'm assuming that you would grant a zero amount to all the major casinos. Strip major casinos.
Yeah.
Your concern is about new or
Agreed.
smaller casinos.
Well-
So the folks here, MGM, Caesars, whatever, if they send in a notice or request next week, they'd probably get it, right?
Well, what I would say is that, yes, given the history, and again, I don't think it's appropriate per se to say one or two, we're talking about a specific licensee, but yes, if that was in line with your business model and you have earned the discretion to be able to have something of that nature, then that would be what the waiver would be intended to cover. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my position's been clear, I think. I'm definitely wanting to get out of the way, not micromanage. I think this falls in the area of micromanaging. And I just want to get out of the way and have less regulations and allow the casino operators to operate. And sometimes it's probably a curse on me that I've worked in the casinos for 8 years and I totally understand how they work. I was there when people come up and want to throw down a couple $1,000, and in those days, there weren't really private salons, but you'd have a high limit area. And without having to go through credit checks and this and that, if the casino manager knows who that player is, let him play, let him play. And so it's probably a curse that I was actually on the inside dealing a numerous number of games for about 8 years and seeing how this stuff actually works in real time. So when Beyonce or somebody walks through the casino late at night and she wants to throw down a few bucks because she wants to get her picture taken or whatever, we shouldn't have to go through all these requirements, whether it's 10,000, 5,000, 20,000, 50,000. I mean, just look at the pattern. It went from 500,000 to 300,000 to today was 50,000. Now we're down to 20,000. There's no real rationale in my mind why we should have any limit whatsoever on what a casino operator has to follow and go through in order to conduct their business. I haven't heard anything with security or enforcement or whatever. They have more security. They have more eyes in the sky in these private salons. So, I mean, I'll go along with that because I think it will accommodate what the operators here want to get to eventually, which is operator discretion. I have no doubt that, you know, all the major strip casinos, if they send in this request, which I'm sure they'll do, that the chair will grant their request to basically go with so-called operator's discretion or $0 amount, or whatever amount they want to go with. So I'll go along with that.
And Judge, I'll ask you a question back. So again, as I said a few times now, we're preaching to the choir, so to speak, right? There is another category, hopefully, of licensees who I would very much encourage to avail themselves of the opportunity to put salons in their casinos. Now, I certainly think that they require the opportunity to show and earn the ability to have discretion to eventually come to a parity with the individuals in this room. And I would hope that's the case. But sitting here, the element of the unknown, what we don't know is that they have to earn that. And from my perspective, a light of day standard of 20,000 allows those particular licensees in that category to earn that. And so this balances out to give both. So I want to make the record clear that I support the licensees. I support getting out of the way to allow you to do your business in a very difficult economic time, not unlike, as I said at the top, 2001, difficult economic time, finding ways to allow for more revenue. But I think we really need to take into account this other piece here, and this solution balances that out. So I appreciate the judge's point of view on that. And yes, I would encourage licensees here who have, to Mr. Pohl's point, earned the discretion, submit as such. And as in many other instances, we will quickly consider, and you can quickly pursue a waiver, and we can all move forward with our business. Member Sandal, anything further?
Nope, I appreciate the conversation and everyone's efforts and time in drafting this.
So with that then, Mr. Michaela, in the interests of economy, to be able to move forward here, we have the draft as written, and I just want to understand, if I ask for a motion, that we could, in an economical fashion, make the changes here to be able to vote on the regs today so that we could then forward them onto the commission today. That would be my goal, if it's possible.
I think we can attempt that. What I would suggest is that I go ahead and state the proposed changes for the record, and then any motion could incorporate my statements by reference.
I think that makes sense, and we'll proceed in that way.
Okay, are you ready for me to do that, or do you want to discuss this some more?
I have nothing further.
I have nothing further, and it would be appreciated if you can go ahead and put on the record the proposed changes as we've discussed here today.
As far as editing goes, on the last, on sub 1, John, next to the last paragraph on page 1. So it would be 2 sub 1, where it says games other than poker shall include a front money deposit of at least, and that'll be $20,000 now.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
And then,
But it's important to note that that too is subject to the potential reduction or waiver.
right, so we'll add that language in there.
Yes. So I think, as I've been drafting on the fly, it's important to note that subsection 2D refers to what an application from a licensee shall provide. So I would propose the adjustment would be in a new subsection that would authorize the chair to actually change the approved financial criteria.
Okay. And then it says these financial criteria shall not apply to guests. You see where that is?
Yes.
Can we just add in there of the patron, of the salon patron, to make clear that we're not talking about just hotel guests, that it's the guests of
Guest
the salon patron?
Guess is a defined term already. It's under subsection 1 that says no change, right? You see that, don't you?
Yeah.
So sorry, that was my attempt at a little bit of humor there. Let me pull up the exact language, and I'll read that into the record to satisfy you there.
These financial conditions should not apply to guests.
Okay, so a guest is defined under 5200 subsection 1C, any person accompanying a salon patron who is permitted to access a gaming salon.
Okay. So we don't need to add that extra language, right?
Right, correct.
Okay. And then, so the total buy-in on the poker, the game of poker may not commence in a gaming salon with less than and that's going to be reduced to 20,000? Is that right?
That's my understanding of
Total
your
buy-in, right?
deliberations, yes.
Total aggregate, total buy-in. And then do we need to add amongst all initial players? Because they're gonna come and go, players.
I believe
Right,
the-
it's at
It's
the
initial.
commencement.
It's at the initial
So the,
Buy-in.
start of the game. Yeah,
The buy-in.
yeah.
right, a game of poker may not commence, so players can come and go.
Okay, very good. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, then, Mr. Michaela, if you wouldn't mind going through in detail the changes that we appear to be ready to agree on. And then thereafter, we
Okay.
can consider a motion.
Okay, I will do my best and we can discuss if I make any errors. So my understanding is that subsection 5202D1, the amount that is presently $300,000 and proposed to be amended to $50,000 would be amended to $20,000. So that would require changes to the first sentence as follows. Games other than poker shall include a front money deposit of at least $20,000 or $20,000 in credit extended to the salon patron, or a combination thereof of at least $20,000. Subsection 5202D2, the second sentence would be amended to read, all participants in the game of poker offered for play in the gaming, my error, the third sentence, starting again, a game of poker may not commence in a gaming salon with less than a $20,000 total buy-in. Then we would add a new subsection, probably after subsection 5, to read, the chair may authorize financial criteria different than approved for a gaming salon in his sole and absolute discretion upon demonstration from a licensee of a strong record of operating gaming salons in accordance with the policies set forth in NRS 463.0129.
I would just say his or her. Right, ladies? Sean?
Did I say his? I
Did you say
apologize.
his or just
Yeah.
there? Just say there.
There would be fine, I believe.
Oh, I did say his, and and I apologize for that. Our convention has been updated, so it would be in the chair's
There you go.
There you go.
sole and absolute
Good
discretion.
catch, Judge.
Okay, does that conclude all of the changes based upon the discussion today, Mr. Michaela?
That is my understanding of the changes. So if you are satisfied, you can incorporate that into the motion. If not, I can adjust it as necessary.
Very good. With that, I will accept from the board a motion on this matter as to regulation 5.200. Member Sendall.
I'm happy to make that motion. Chairman Dreitzer, I move that the board submit to the Nevada Gaming Commission for their consideration and adoption the proposed amendments to Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 5.200 that are before us with the draft date August 7th, 2025, taking into account the changes made in the record by Senior Dag McKella, along with the recommendation that any such adoption be made effective upon passage. That would be my motion. I'm open if you guys want a different date, effective date. We didn't really discuss that.
From my perspective, it would be effective upon approval by the Nevada Gaming Commission.
And that would be a passage date, but I can amend my motion to
Adoption.
state, be made effective upon approval of the Nevada Gaming Commission. Does that work, Madam Secretary?
Yes, I believe the language we commonly use is effective upon adoption.
Okay.
Very good. Madam Secretary.
Member Assad,
Aye.
Member Sandal,
Aye.
Chairman Dreitzer.
Aye. Before we go to public comment to close out the matter, I want to thank everybody for their participation today. I think it was a very good discussion across the board. And I think we ended up with a good result for the licensees to allow them to continue to run their business within their earned discretion. So you certainly have done a great job in that respect. For those licensees who look to potentially add salons, they will take the time to get the experience, and the expectation is that they will continue to earn discretion as well. So it balances everything out. We thank everyone for their time. And with that, we will go to public comment.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so at this time. Comments by each person are limited to 3 minutes as a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. If board members ask questions of the speaker, the time needed to address those questions will not count against the speaker's 3-minute time period. If speakers have any handouts or written copies of verbal comments to provide for the record, please hand them to the enforcement agent in the room.
Is there anyone wishing to make a public comment in Carson City? Seeing none, is there anyone wishing to make a public comment in Las Vegas? Please step forward. Judge Assad.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Dreitzer. I would just like to thank you for your willingness to compromise and meet me on my concerns and the concerns of the licensees that are here today. I appreciate the fact that you're flexible and willing to understand all points of view. And I appreciate the participants here today from the licensees to come and voice their concerns and opinions. We really depend on you folks to guide us and help us when we do these regulations and workshops, because we don't know squat compared to what you know about your business. So thank you for your input. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Judge, I'll just add to that. I appreciate that. And thank you for a spirited discussion, which I think led to a good outcome today. And I also want to thank Chief Torgerson, who on a regular basis and for the last 25 years plus has been with the enforcement division and works side by side with those individuals so seamlessly with the licensees. So taking into account that as well, I believe we reached, again, a really good result. So thank you, Judge, and thank you, Chief Torgerson. Member Sandal.
Thank you. I don't have anything.
Very good. With that, the workshop is concluded. Thank you.